For most of human history, the expansion of territory was a direct function of the size of a nation's army. Power meant imposing your own will on another country through realpolitik and war, where greatness was measured by the number of soldiers a ruler could keep under arms. By the end of the Cold War, the United States had mastered this historical model, emerging as the world's sole indispensable nation. From the perspective of the Founding Fathers to the modern elite, the mission was clear: lead and control the international order through unrivaled strength. This chart shows the scale of that ambition. The United States spends roughly $700 billion annually on its military. That is more than the armaments budgets of China, Saudi Arabia, India, France, and Russia combined. This spending supports a physical footprint without parallel. 500,000 American soldiers stationed across 800 military bases, maintaining a continuous presence in 172 different countries. By every traditional metric of history, this concentration of military force should translate into total, unconditional control over global behavior. But having the most advanced infantry units on the planet has not guaranteed success. In the decades following the invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq, the U.S. found that military superiority could win a battle, but it could not resolve the underlying political chaos or disenchant the ideologies driving the conflict. Because these hot wars proved difficult to win and increasingly unpopular at home, Washington began leaning into substitute wars. This saw the rise of judicial imperialism, using cross-border dollar transfers to justify the arrest of foreign executives, and the deployment of economic sanctions to punish those who oppose American interests. Even with these alternative tools, the results are falling short. Terrorism metrics have risen since 2001. Global rivals are actively developing alternative monetary systems to bypass the dollar, and the shift of spheres of influence has become more important than the movement of borders. We are witnessing a historic disconnect. The most powerful military apparatus ever assembled is failing to dictate global outcomes. To understand why, we have to look at how the nature of security has been rewritten for the 21st century. The environment surrounding global conflict has been altered by a new international legal order. This is the International Criminal Court in The Hague. While some major powers refuse to recognize it, a large part of the international community now uses this institution to punish war crimes, signaling that unilateral violence is no longer an accepted tool of diplomacy. This legal shift is reinforced by an information revolution that has stripped away the fog of war. When the public can watch combat operations live in their living rooms, it becomes nearly impossible for a government to legitimize the killing and destruction required to win a traditional battle. This diagram shows the historical mindset of the nation-state. For 1,000 years, international security was 90%. The rest has been replaced by human security, a broad umbrella covering everything from environmental protection and health safety to the security of digital currencies and supply chains. These are problems that cannot be solved through armed conflict. You cannot deploy a carrier group to stop a migration movement driven by climate change, and you cannot shoot a missile at a cyber attack that threatens your power grid. As the utility of the military has shrunk, the nation-state has lost its historical monopoly on wielding power. A new set of players has emerged, fragmented the global landscape, and captured the influence that governments once held alone. Multinational corporations are now primary actors in international relations. Look at the market value of these groups. Companies like Apple, Amazon, and Google hold valuations that exceed the GDPs of most sovereign nations, allowing them to set the global rules for everything from tax policy to data privacy. At the same time, global civil networks have learned to mobilize at a scale armies cannot match. These crowds in Tahrir Square represent a decentralized power that can organize instant resistance, using mobile phones and social media to topple regimes and force political change from the bottom up. Power has moved into the hands of stakeholders, markets, and media networks. It is no longer enough to convince a government to act. You now have to convince a globalized and highly informed citizenry. There is a model for surviving this new reality. The Council of Europe represents a revolution in diplomacy, where Western nations moved away from traditional power politics. They replaced the war mindset with a welfare mindset, focusing on human rights and cooperation to increase the standard of living for their people. However, the old impulse for military dominance remains. Many in Washington view the rise of President Xi Jinping and China's Belt and Road Initiative through the lens of a Thucydides trap, the persistent belief that an emerging power and a dominant one are destined for a physical war. But preparing for a 20th century clash of militaries ignores the reality of the present. While nations argue over defense spending as a percentage of GDP, the real battles for the future are being fought over the control of information systems, infrastructure projects, and the resilience of global supply chains. The ultimate superpower of the 21st century is not the nation that can destroy its enemies, but the entity that can navigate the world's complex networks to ensure prosperity for its people. In a divided world, military strength has become a baseball bat in a game that is no longer being played with a ball.